Enjoying the conference so far?
Yeah, it's great.
So Greg and I met a few months ago back in Columbus, Ohio, and we had the chance to talk about what Express is doing in terms of innovation, and I found it really fascinating. So I'm really happy to have you here with us today. Now, before we start with the actual chat. Express is a big brand in the US. You guys operate 634 stores today, right? Have over 5 million people on your website every month. But in Israel, only the ones who are frequent flyers to the US know what Express is. So can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Yeah, so Express has been around for quite some time, well over 30 years. And our stores are primarily located in malls, and we focus on the consumer that is between 20 and 30 years old. So we like to think about it like it's the place you would go to get that outfit for your first job interview out of school, and you would wear our clothes to work and to party on the weekend and everything in between. So that's primarily where we focus.
And you have a new store in New York which serves as an innovation lab, right?
Yep, we have an innovation store in 51st and Madison. I encourage you, if you're in New York, to go and check it out. We've done a number of things with that store. One, changing the format itself a bit to sort of change up the experience. But we've also put in some different technology to be able to interact with some of our outfits and see different combinations and things like that. We've also invested quite a bit in a stylist experience that is something we're really excited about, where you can make an appointment and go and see someone, and they'll select sets of clothes to put outfits together that you can try on and get their advice and really understand how it all works and would fit together.
Amazing. And what's your role at Express, and what do you actually do there?
Yeah. So I'm responsible for technology at Express. I think in the past we had an organization that was set up with sort of traditional IT, and then we had e-commerce. And so all the technology for e-commerce was within the e-commerce team, and all the technology for the stores was in the traditional or enterprise IT organization. As you see the blurring of the channels, there's the need to have your online experience and your in-store experience sort of merge together more easily. And I don't know about you, but as someone who's been in retail my entire professional career, I always go into the store or I go online, and there are certain tells that you can see whether how the organization is set up in the background. So, where's the store locator on the website? Is it up on the top, easy to find, or is it buried down in the bottom? Well, that tells you something about the income and how they account for it, who gets what money in the organization. From an internal perspective, but from the customer perspective, that's not the best experience. You want what you want when you want it, right? And you want to be able to have your experience online and in-store be very similar, if not the same. So one of the things that happened when I went to Express is I have technology across traditional enterprise and e-commerce. So as we try to make that experience more and more seamless, it's one set of technology. And I'm here with one of the most important partners I have at Express, Jude Reeder. You'll hear from him later today. He owns the customer experience across the store and e-commerce. So we're looking at the technology as one stack. We're looking at the experience and the operations as one continuous conversation to really be able to drive that better conversation that I think our customers are looking for and expecting as their expectations change.
Well, that's definitely a key word for success today, the experience. And can you tell us about the innovation process at Express? How do you guys, how do you think about that? How you organize the resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say we've gone through a bit of a transition with innovation, and it sort of in the past was something where someone would see an interesting startup or a new technology and say, oh, we've got to have that. And that might be someone from an engineering perspective, or it could be someone in the executive team, and there'd be a little bit of a fire drill to try to pull that organization in and not really sure how to work with them and get through making sure it's secure and how does it fit in our systems, how do we integrate if we have to integrate at all. And it felt very extracurricular, like it was just sort of on the side, it wasn't the work that we do. So Jude and I actually, we spent a lot of time going through and figuring out how we can work well with startups. So we put a framework together, sort of different stages and different gates. And that might sound a little bureaucratic, but actually it's the opposite. What we're doing is we're trying to help startups understand much faster if they're a company we can work with. Because we sort of felt like we were having this slow no kind of a conversation, which really isn't good for anyone. So get them in, look at what they're doing, see if they can meet some basic criteria to make it okay to work with us, because security is always something that is just a non-negotiable. We can't expose our customers to any kind of risk beyond what we already have today, that we know about, because there are always those unknown risks. So we go through and we want to do a prototype, a pilot, and then blast it out across the organization. And so just that's the process we have now, and we're sort of trying to get to a place where it's just very regular. So we meet on a regular basis, a small group of people saying, hey, where are we at with these people? You need to move on with them because it's been too long, and just keep it going fast. And then the other piece of that is that's a very small group from a tracking perspective, but we don't have a group of technologists or business people who are just focused on innovation from an actual implementation, because we want to have it in every part of the organization. One of the things that we found is if you have a little group in our organization that's sort of off on the side and they're like coming up with great ideas and they're bringing it to fruition and they're like, okay, it's ready for prime time, then the rest of the organization is, well, they have a million questions, I don't know about this, it's like, it work, I can't integrate, all those kinds of things. So it's incumbent upon the technologists in each of the capability areas, like in the store technology, if we're going to do something, they need to be a part of it from the beginning. And if there are issues, they need to call out right away, so you just work through it. And by the time you get to doing that pilot, if it's successful, it should be something that you can roll out across the organization.
That's amazing. We see a lot of companies that are starting, the way you said it, just looking at different startups and then, oh, this is cool, so let's try it. And it's really great to see a company that really takes the whole innovation and puts it into a structured process. But I think that innovation, for innovation to be successful, there needs to be buy-in from the top. How do you get the buy-in from your CEO, and how do you get the resources that you need?
Yeah, that's actually, I feel pretty lucky, because by the time I showed up at Express, it was just under a year ago, there's already this idea that, hey, in order for our organization to survive, we're going to need innovation to navigate the changing customer expectations. Being a mall-based retailer primarily, with a very large growing online, but online is not the majority. So you have a lot of stores, you have leases, you've got to make them successful. Navigating through that, our path to survival in that area has really been around innovation and making sure that we're shifting to what the customer expects. So there was, at the high level, some buy-in from the senior executive CEO, board of directors. When we put the structure around it and we start feeding back, hey, here are the companies we looked at, here are the ones that we said, they're not right for us now, but if they change, we'll talk to them again, and here are the ones that we're proceeding with, and showing them that, and in what areas, and really getting agreement with them on the things that we're focused on affecting. For example, we agree that customer acquisition is really important. So here are the companies that we're looking at that can help us with different aspects of customer acquisition or frictionless commerce, right? So a number of different areas we've gone through, what our associates are experiencing, and really aligning that those are strategic objectives across the organization, and then being able to report out and help them understand that it's not just people off in the corner, and that it's not a black box, it's not a mystery, getting really clear about what we think it would take to do that, and getting buy-in at the highest levels all the way up through the board, and saying, hey, and if we're serious about this, we need to invest. And so when you have all those pieces in line, and you show what we've been able to do, and then you say, yeah, and if we're serious, we need to invest, you get a lot of agreement very quickly, and you just move through it.
That's amazing. And can you share a few examples of innovation that you've implemented in the past year? What was successful, what wasn't?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the little things can get you hung up on some of the things, so it's easy to talk about the ones that haven't been super successful. But Jude and I were actually talking this morning, and one of the most favorite ones for both he and I is a pilot that we've done that we're starting to expand more and more, that's around proactive chat. So if someone's shopping online and they sort of get stalled in one area, we can proactively reach out to them and we're using our customer call center folks. Well, they'll reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed you got do you have questions? I noticed you've been here for a while. And that has been driving conversion on the website. It's really exciting. And our call center loves it as well because two things. One, sometimes when they tend to do chat online, sometimes that converts into a call. And when it converts into a call, they know exactly what the customer sees on the website. It's live, and they can help them. And we see the conversion goes up, and their average check goes up, and average order size goes up. And it's pretty exciting, and it was really easy to implement with our partner. We've done other things just to try to understand more what our customer wants and needs. We've done some stuff around what we call scan, drop, and go. We get a lot of online orders, and one of the benefits of having a number of stores all throughout the US is that if you don't like it, you can return it, and sometimes people feel it's easier to ship it than to return it, but oftentimes they would rather just drop it off at one of our stores, which is great. The issue with that, though, is it's a very different experience when you're returning stuff in a store from online than the regular in-store shopping. The first week I was at Express, I was working at a store in Orange County, California, just to understand what the experience was like. And I hit this head on. It was noon on a Tuesday, and this guy comes in with 2 bags full of clothes, women's jeans. He was being very nice and returning his wife's jeans. But there were 20 pairs because she had been basically shopping at home online and trying them on and then returning it. And it's just a very lengthy process to return. So, and you see other people that start waiting and they don't really like waiting in line. You open another Cash App and it just sort of disrupts that internal flow. So we've done a lot of work on something we call scan, drop, and go, where you can do all the paperwork online, you bring the stuff in, just scan a barcode and leave it, and that's it. Pretty simple innovation. It just tweaks experience a little bit, but it's much better for the person returning. And more importantly, it's much better for all the other people who are purchasing in that time because that person isn't, we sort of think of it as like clogging the line. They're not clogging the line, like the slow person in traffic in front of you. So this is something
and that worked, or?
Yeah, we're piloting now, and it's getting a lot of good feedback, and we'll start to roll it out more widely.
And tell us about something that you've tried and wasn't that successful.
We had some displays that, like we talked about, where you can see the garments and you can sort of look at different outfits and how everything can bind to each other. But one of the things that we got wrong on that was it was great, and it was really great in the beginning, but we change our fashion out very regularly. And those screens, as soon as they start selling out of 1 or 2 items in the store, we gotta change the screens. But it's one of those things, you put it in, you try it, and then you go back into the store after a little while, and they're like, yeah, no one really looks at it because the stuff's not current. You're like, oh, okay, basic little things like that. Like you gotta make sure that your content's up to date, up to minute. As soon as they sell out, you gotta change it out. So, it's the little things, right?
The little things, always,
Yep.
What do you think about the Israeli startups that you've seen so far?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time looking at different startups in the US, and there's some fairly interesting things. I think oftentimes you think about Silicon Valley and there are a ton of startups there, and there really are, but those startups go across every part of life, every part of business, and as far as retail and retail-specific startups, there are some. There are also a lot of startups that are, when they talk about retail startups, they are startups who are starting their own retail companies, as opposed to startups that are creating technology for retail. And one of the things I've been really impressed with is the depth of startups that are supporting existing retailers, whether you're online or in-store, and then a lot of the focus around going across online and in-store to really unify commerce. So it's pretty exciting. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. And what would be the best way for Israeli startups to engage and potentially work with Express?
Yeah, I think for me, the one thing you're always looking for is, okay, is the company really clear about what they're solving for? Because I get from the startup perspective that you got to try one thing and you shift a little, try another thing, and you sort of land on the mark after a while. For me, sometimes it's a struggle to understand really what are you really, really good at? What is that thing that is different that I haven't seen before? And cutting away everything else just to really get at that one thing that's really that innovative idea that you have figured out how to make it work. And going after that, being really clear about that. And then I think, you know, just that open and honest conversation of whether that's a fit or it's not a fit. Because if it's a fit, it's like you put a lot of energy into it. If it's not, then you just need to move to the next. Right?
Last question.
Yep.
What are the 2 key areas that you're currently looking at in terms of new technology?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell you it's frictionless commerce. So everything to make that transaction easier online and in store. And then the other is customer acquisition. But I put in a third that's actually probably my favorite, and that's all of the pieces around a stylist experience. So helping people understand what's the right fit, what's the right combination, what works for this occasion, online and in store, and bridging it across both, because there's a fitting room experience, and then there's a lot of stuff you can do around the fact that you can't try it on in store. So those are the 3 areas.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Bert, for
thank you.
joining us today.
Great.